Thank you for the introduction, dear colleagues. Happy to be here in this exciting and inspiring session. And indeed, I'd like to talk to you about how to present your data, both in terms of presentations and in terms of posters. And with this title slide, in fact, I am expressing everything that I wanted to say in this presentation. I could have started, for instance, my presentation with this title slide, saying everything that you learned from the other slide as well. And if I really want to spice it up with some graphics, I can add the logos of my universities where I'm attached to. And then after the title slide, I'm starting with the introduction. Like many people do, and they start a presentation with a bunch of slides that normally contain too many words on one slide, and then you start to read each single word on the slide, and at the end everyone falls asleep and is bored to death. Or I can do it differently, and I can use a lot of bullet points to structure the presentation in such a way that I have the same impact that you are losing the attention to what I really wanted to say. Yes, indeed, I started with this slide. And I have to say that I got very much inspired to start this presentation with this slide by the homepage of the company Visme. It's a company that is specialized in visualization techniques, data visualization. And the credo of this company is speak loudly, speak visually. And indeed, if you really want to grasp the attention of your audience, you need to make sure that you use visual techniques to make sure that you take them and lead them through the entire presentation. And in fact, that's what I would like to do today in the presentation. I would like to give you some of the examples of presentations that I have prepared previously, not to say that these presentations have to be the standard or that these are the best examples, but I know why I took them, these designs and so on, and I can also illustrate and also explain how I came to that from a technical point of view. So I'd like to lead you through some of the design options. And indeed, let's start again with the title slide. Don't underestimate the impact of a title slide, because this is quite often the slide that is the longest on the screen. When you're coming from the room to the stage, when you're presenting, when you're introduced, this is where you already can trigger the interest of the audience, where you can make them wondering, hey, what this will be about. And try to look for metaphors. You can do this throughout your presentation, but start with this in your title slide. An example of transfer and transition of young people when they go from pediatric care to adult care. Well, this is a nice expression of how to address this issue. Or another example, if you want to raise attention for a specific non-linear relationship, why not using a curvy way? And people immediately know, hey, yes, indeed, this is something that I need to remember. You can also use some fonts to express this non-linearity. If you have curvy fonts, try to make use of them as well. It increases the appealing of the design of your slides. And also it underpins the message that you want to give. Talking about fonts, try to get inspired by contemporary web designs, or even if I'm watching television and you have news or some broadcasting stations with specific news flashes, I'm quite often looking at how do they design, what is the way how they bring bring it graphically. And this is, for instance, an example that was inspired on how news items are presented on Belgian news today. Also, an interesting way to, or an interesting aspect to visualize is using videos. This is a title slide of how to write an article, and indeed people were sitting in the room for a while since it was a seminar, and they got intrigued like, hey, what is going on there? This is not just a picture, there are some movements, and people try to already be attentive before the seminar started. Let's move on to a second aspect, how to structure a presentation. And quite often you see presentations where they provide a structure like this. But try to do this in a visual way as well. And this is an example. I prepared the presentation entitled Cigarettes, Alcohol, Diet and Exercise in Congenital Heart Disease. And I wanted to address these four aspects indeed. And instead of saying, well, first I will go to the cigarettes and then I go to the alcohol, I try to visualize it this way. So yes, this is what we address first. This is what we will address second. And I started talking about alcohol. And then third, I'm starting to talk about the diet. Once again, don't underestimate the importance of a good structure in your presentation, because if it is not structured well, you're losing your audience. Another way to do is, and this is by using contemporary visualizations. This is a mock of an iPad, and indeed you can put all the topics that you would like to address in the presentation on this iPad. And then move on with this. First topic that I would like to address is the brain issues. Second thing that I would like to address has to do with the pyramid of the levels of evidence, and so on. So that's a way how you can really keep the audience with you during your presentation. Another aspect has to do with how to present the data. And this is a kind of graph that you often see on presentations, on conferences, so everyone is used to that, and then it's easy to lose the attention. And even this kind of tables you sometimes see presented on a conference. I'm sure that everyone among you ever has seen a presenter showing this type of table and then saying, I'm sure that you cannot read it. Yeah, of course, but why are you presenting it then? Yeah. So try to look for ways to give the same information, but in a way that is appealing and it is digestible. This is an example of a presentation that I gave on tattoos and piercings in congenital heart disease. And I only wanted to say, well, there are 5 cases of people with congenital heart disease that ever developed endocarditis. And these were the circumstances that an endocarditis occurred. And overall, the consequence is 1 death. When coming to the piercing, the data in the literature pertains to 19 cases. And these were the circumstances. And these were the patient numbers that presented these cases. This is digestible. Everyone can remember this and can take this home. Also, if you want to indicate proportions, either you can say, well, 50% of the general population is known to have piercings or earrings, or you can present it like this. And once again, look for ways to visualize. One question that a lot of people can have then is like, but how can you do this? What are techniques to use it? And indeed, there are a lot of techniques to be used. One feature that is in the latest versions of PowerPoint, it's morphing. And it's exciting to see what possibilities you have with morphing. you can have a shape, you can have a figure, and it is really morphing into another shape, another color, and whatever. And of course, this is basic design. This is not what you need in a professional presentation, but you can use this morphing transition, morphing technique, when you're really giving a professional presentation. So like in this presentation, I wanted to indicate that we wanted to see in the literature what was known about E-health and M-health in congenital heart disease, and by coincidence there was just a recent literature review published. So we wanted to go deeper into what was known from this review, and the review indicated that there were 10 papers, 10 studies published over the past decades on E-health in congenital heart disease. These 10 studies pertain to 5 domains, and then you can say, well, in the first domain there were 5 papers, in the second domain there were 2 papers, and so on. This is all done with morphing technique. So it's in fact not that difficult. You don't have to be too tech savvy to know how to do it. Just use the current features that there are available. Another aspect that I would like to address is that when developing or when you try to develop nice visualizations, you need to work with a lot of layers. So this is an introduction slide that I showed you in the beginning. And in fact, these are different layers projected upon each other. And if you look at the different layers, it looks like this. So if you see it like this, then you realize, okay, you can build up the slides in the way you want to have it yourself, by cutting out certain windows, by putting moving objects behind, and so on. This is another example of how you can use different layers. You see a video with the clouds in the back, and these are the different layers. The video, some filters to make it a bit more dense and not that sharp from color, the 2 rocks, the man hanging in between, and so on. Working with layers is another key element of building up nice presentations. So far, I was talking about presentations. What about posters? In fact, it's a bit the same philosophy that you can use here. And you don't have to go that far. It can be sometimes easy by using nice colors, by having one picture where you can, in this case, put the aim of the project in, and it looks completely different because it's not that dense in words. Sometimes you also can use sometimes you can refer to the logo of your study. Like in this case, it's the Stepstones project that we are doing in Sweden. We have this logo, and we try to translate this into the slide, and to a certain extent the cross of the Swedish flag was giving us also the 4 quadrants that you could use to build up your poster. And then finally, this is a poster that we are presenting here on this conference. It's on the methodology of the Adoles 7C project. This is a collaborative project between Sweden, Belgium, and South Africa, where Liesel is the PI for the South African branch. So I warm-heartedly invite you to bring a visit to this poster tomorrow. And what is key when you are looking at the posters is, once again, use visualization techniques. And this is, for instance, a poster that I would like to go a bit deeper in. And let's, for instance, look at the introduction and the aim. You give a specific dedicated place for the aim, big enough so that it catches the attention of the reader. Instead of using a lot of words, why not using icons? And they are freely available on the net. Why not using icons to say actually the same as you are using many words? how can people remember some of the data? If you bring them in a visual way, then they will remember much better than if you bring them in words. And also talking about tables, sometimes you cannot avoid to have tables, but also try to make them appealing enough to have an impact and to trigger the attention of your audience. One important element in all this is, okay, visualization is one thing, but I need figures, I need pictures to use this. And quite often, it's not that easy, it's not that difficult to find figures of pictures on the internet. But what is the problem with most of the pictures is, on one hand, they have this copyright trademark, and then it's not good and not nice to use it unless you pay for it. And second, they are often in a very low resolution. So you see what's happening with this figure if you really want to make it on the entire slide. Well, in the meantime, there are many websites where you have royalty-free figures, and you can perfectly use them, and they are to be used for free as long as you put some credits if you use it for commercial reasons, which is not the case in the presentations that we are given. One of these sites is freepik.com. It's a combination of pictures, but also icons, vector figures, and so on. It's a huge, it's a massive resource to be used. Another site with purely photographs, pictures, is pexels.com. A third that I could recommend is pixabay.com, and a fourth is unsplash.com. So these four websites, if you go there, you find almost all the pictures that you need in a high resolution, royalty-free, so you are not violating any regulations in that respect. I was using some videos, remember what I was showing, the video of the person at the keyboard? Well, Pexels has a site for photographs, for pictures, but also for videos, and there you can have, there you can download the videos. Most of the time, these are videos of 10 to 15, 20 seconds. You just put them in a loop, and it serves the purpose. This is, for instance, what I thought a nice way to conclude a presentation where I wanted to express the fact that you need to have some patience and you just have to persevere to go on. Take your time to do so, and a cup of coffee was a nice expression, I thought. Well, this video comes from Pexels' video. Another nice or interesting way to visualize is what is called Cinemagraphs. You see, this is a picture, but one small part is moving, and it's here, the mirror in the sunglasses of this girl. And for the rest, it's a static picture. So there is a specific way to develop this, but there are also nice websites where you also can download these kind of cinemagraphs for free. And one of the sites is called cinemagraphs.com, and another site is Clipstill. So if you are looking for interesting visualizations using cinemagraphs, you can find this here. If you're looking for specific icons, because that's also very powerful, pickle.org is also a vast database of icons for whatever you need. You can find it there. And then I'm close to the end of this presentation, onlygfx.com. That's a website where you can find a lot of shapes. And shapes can range from brushes, splashes, in color, in black, and so on. And why is it so interesting to use shapes that are put on this website, you can work with them. For instance, this shape in itself, it doesn't mean a lot, but you can change the shape or the background of the shape by the lion where we started. And in fact, this brings me back to the beginning of the presentation and back to the main thing and the only thing that I wanted to tell you today. And it's the credo of the Visme company. If you really want to have an impact in your presentations, you need to grasp the attention of your audience. Speak loudly, speak visually. If you are interested to see more about the presentations of which I just showed some screenshots, please pay a visit to this website. And I can also say that the presentation that I gave here today can be checked and can be followed on that website in a few days as well. Thank you very much.